How's it going, YouTube? Coming at you today with another video, and today, guys, what the review is going to be branded Chimera. I went undefeated today at a localized event. It was really fun. This is a list that I'm actually bringing to the regional this weekend, and I really wanted to go over why I like this so much. The Tri-Brigade build is definitely very cool, and we're waiting on the brand new Fusion, but for now, I'm playing the branded build. This was really clean, and I want to go over a couple different card choices that I used today, just because I feel like streamlining the branded engine, playing a few less cards of actual engine and way more non-engine is definitely just the way to go right now, and you'll see that in my profile. Today I'm actually doing an IRL profile, which I thought would be kind of cool to switch things up a little bit. Maybe we'll go back to this again in the future. Definitely let me know what you think about it down in the comments below when you're done. But if you haven't checked my sponsors over at Imperium Duelist, Dragon Shield, Grimoire, or Gem, definitely go ahead and check them all out down in the description below. Without further ado, let's hop right into the first slide. The first thing I want to talk about today is how this helps you play through hand traps. Now, branded alone is really cool for getting ashed, and we all know this, but what if I told you that could be a positive thing? So if you open Branded Fusion and Sword Knight or Way 2 Sword Knight, if you activate Branded Fusion and you get ashed, and then you can normal summon Sword Knight with full confidence that when you use the effect, you can't get ashed twice. It's really cool because at that point you can go ahead and summon Birthmet, you can go into Beast. So since they already hand trapped you once, now the Beast can rip out another card. They're going to start with 4 cards. You have Guardian Chimera lined up and the rest of your hand with hand traps and what have you. So definitely a lot of very cool things that you can do to set up, especially if you do get hand trapped on one, you can go right into the other engine, which is something that I really did like in my 60 card striker build, is there's just so many different things that you had to ash that once you ash one, you let the other power engine go through. So I think that's really important in a build like this, and that actually does come up quite often. And you're always leading with the Branded Fusion because the Chimera cards are your recursion and your really big engine of the deck. So opening up with Branded Fusion and getting ashed is perfectly fine, especially if you have talent, because then you get ashed on Branded Fusion, you talent rip out of their hand, and now you're going to beast rip out of their hand. They're going to start their turn with 3 cards, which is absolutely horrifying with the amount of hand traps this deck plays. Then you have Chimera lined up and whatever else you have, maybe even the Rimbrum. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do that make it really hard for your opponent to play. Now, the next thing here is about consistency. Now, why does the branded engine help consistency in the Chimera engine? So when you use Branded Fusion, you dump the Gazelle and you dump Fallen to summon Rimbrum, and then your Gazelle can either add you Kotal or Sword Knight. If you're worried about Droll, you add Sword Knight. If you're not really worried about Droll, then you'll add Kotal. The reason why this is such a huge decision is because if you're actually able to add the Kotal, because then you can go ahead and pitch it, add your Sword Knight, and now you have the targeting protection in your grave once you summon out the Beast. But if you're worried about Droll, you add the Sword Knight, so if you have like Chimera Fusion, you can go ahead and just normal summon Sword Knight and pass with the Chimera Fusion set, and draw phase, you'll use Sword Knight, you'll summon the Baphomet, add 2, and now you have a lineup for the Guardian Chimera, which is also very good. You'll get 2 draws and a pop 1 since the Baphomet will be the only thing on your board. If you ever do get drolled, you really have to make the decision on if you want to use the fusion on your opponent's turn or on your turn, because if you go ahead and make the Beast, then you really want to make sure that you also have the ability to make a Guardian Chimera on the following turn, i.e. if you have enough monsters in hand, where if you make it on your opponent's turn, then you're actually able to use the effect of Gazelle again to add another monster, so therefore you'll have a lineup for Guardian Chimera. That also depends on how many Chimera Fusions you have, because if you just have 1, then you'll have to make Beasts, add it back, set, and then you'll be able to Guardian Chimera on your opponent's turn. If you have 2, and you're playing 2 Guardian Chimera, let's say they like Magnemite you, you actually can Guardian Chimera on your turn to draw 2 and pop that, which is pretty cool because then you can set the Chimera Fusion to Guardian Chimera them again on their turn. I've done that a few times, and that's definitely really cool because you're able to draw into things like Droll, Ash, Imperm, what have you. Even Super Poly, the card's broken. But there is a huge decision tree when it comes to adding Kotal or Sword Knight. It just depends on if you respect Droll or not at the time. But again, it is really nice when you can just go normal summon Sword Knight, set Chimera Fusion, pass, draw phase, summon Baphomet, add 2, and then now you're able to just Guardian Chimera your opponent at any point, which can be very impactful as well. Now, too many normal summons in the deck means that I don't play a Luber. I really don't want to get into a situation where I'm forced to be like, okay, I have to either summon a Luber or the Sword Knight, because the Sword Knight's going to win that battle every time. And I don't really feel like the deck is trying to be stopped by having too many cards that do the same thing. That's why I don't play Patchwork, because there's a lot of issues with Patchwork. One, activate Patchwork, get drolled. That's unfortunate. Then your Chimera engine is really trying to get you to Chimera your opponent. So therefore, the Patchwork engine is only really good going second. Like, yeah, it can make your Chimera untargetable. That doesn't really help you. And then also, I don't like things that do the same thing, especially when things do the same thing, they don't really complement each other. But overall, I do think that when you streamline the branded package and play as few cards as possible, that's when it's really impactful because all the cards that you can top deck will do something. And we'll talk a bit more about that in the deck profile. So the last thing that I want to cover here is going to be tons of room for non-engine. Now this build alone has like 19 spots for non-engine, which is insane. The amount of just one card starters and a ton of hand traps or interruptions that you can open up first or second, it's something that really does make this a very scary deck to play against, because not only when they go first are you getting hand looped, you're also having to worry about getting hit with cards like Guardian Chimera. Now when the deck goes second, you also have to worry about getting Chimera, but you also have to worry about the amount of non-engine in the deck. And let me show you what I mean. So here's the list that I used at the event. I thought this was really solid and something that I really did enjoy. The amount of non-engine that you can run in this deck, and then also the amount of consistency that it had was actually just absurd. I really do like this deck a lot, and just showing you a bit of the non-engine here, having 3 Ash, 3 Droll, having 2 Mourner, 2 Veiler, 3 Imperm, just so many hand traps, especially effect negation right now, I think is so important against matchups even like Pearly, that you really do need a lot of this. Droll alone obviously just wins you so many games, but having Ash, Imperm, Veiler, and Mourner, these are cards that will really just stop your opponent's turn from happening, so that if you are put going second, you have the chance to go ahead and just summon your 1 card starter, which this deck is loaded with, and then you're able to just stun your opponent long enough to where you can go ahead and take over the game, especially being able to lead back into your opponent's turn with a Guardian Chimera, I think is even crazier. But then we have the illusion cards, 3 Codal and then 3 Sword Knight. These cards are so broken, especially the fact that they can't be killed in battle because they're illusion monsters, and that's like the new niche fact that they have. So you can banish the beast out of your graveyard and summon either one of these in battle phase, and it can't be run over, so you can't lose, which is very cool. This being a Rhoda for your E-Telly is kind of insane too, because it's all just very free, and then they're also just negations in the graveyard, so equally very, very cool. You do have to have Chimera, the mythical flying beast, on your board, so just the new fusion, which is considered that. But at the same time, these cards are just so broken. They're so very good. Talking a bit more about the rest of the engine though, having 3 and 2. This on summon allows you to grab Baphomet or Chimera Fusion. This on summon can grab you this and Chimera Fusion. So obviously summoning this is a lot better than summoning this, but there are times where you do normal this and add your Chimera Fusion, so you can just go ahead and Guardian Chimera and try to draw into other cards as well. When this is fused, you can go ahead and Reborn an Illusion. When this is fused, you can go ahead and Rhoda an Illusion. So a lot of consistency in the deck, and a lot of ways the deck just works so well together, and it works even better because we are playing this next engine, which is the branded engine, which is very cool. I do like this a lot, because if you activate Branded Fusion, you can summon Rin, which allows you to dump the Gazelle, then the Gazelle can add you the Sword Knight, and now you have access to your other engine. This is also very cool because you can hard make the Mirror Jade as well if you need to, which does come up here and there because you need to be able to out things not targeting it, or just clear it like completely, which is also very cool. This card just enables so much, and the fact that this is an Ash Blossom Magnet is kind of crazy, because if you activate this and it gets ashed, you can follow up with Normal Summon Sword Knight full combo, and then you can go Beast Rip another card of their hand. They start with 4, and then if you have Talent, they start with 3. So very, very cool. A lot of value out of this card. Even being able to just normal summon Albaz came up today too, which was really cool. The on summon effect is so crazy. I really was considering playing an Alba in my extra deck as well to just go ahead and contact fuse with dragons, which I probably should have, but I really couldn't find room. And then I also just didn't think at the time it would be very relevant, so I didn't really want to go out of my way to look for one. But that is something that you could consider, because it's really easy to get to a Fallen of Albaz. I am playing 3 Super Poly. I think this card's absurd, and 3 Chimera Fusion. I'd probably never cut down on Chimera Fusion. I think this card's very good. Even generically, just opening this up, even if you hard open like a Baphomet and you can normal summon a hand trap, it still enables you to be able to Guardian Chimera, at least to draw for cards and pop 1. So it's still pretty relevant. And then having Super Poly, this card stole me so many games today. This card's still so relevant. You really have to respect this card. It's so good. We'll talk about a couple of the Super Poly targets in the extra deck that are really solid. And then the last couple cards I feel like are probably the most important of the deck. Playing 3 Crossout and then playing 1 Call By. Crossout is so good. It's so good. And I usually would never say that because I don't think this card is usually very good, but I think this card right now is so absurd because you play so many hand traps and you don't just lose to getting Ash or Drolled, so you have like a counter for that. But not only that, right? So we play 2 talent as well, which is equally very good. Because this is the other way that you can go ahead and rip another card out of your opponent's hand. But it's also just another way that you can draw cards and, you know, just talent is talent. But you have another cross-out target in talent. You also just have another cross-out target in so many different ways, right? Because if you're playing against Branded, you can go ahead and just cross-out call Branded Fusion. So there's a lot of really cool instances where this does come up. I do think that you should try this out. Even if you don't normally like cross-out, I heavily recommend trying this card out in the deck. I think that it's really important and you really want to see your plays going off. Especially if you open up like 3 hand traps, Sword Knight, and cross-out, you just feel like you won the game already. Because you know that your play isn't going to get stopped unless they open like absolutely absurd, right? But other than that, moving on to my extra deck here, a couple tokens, my field center. We have a super poly target in Mud Dragon. We have 2 of the Beast. I think this is fine. I don't really think that you need more. 1 of Garura, just because, again, super poly, amazing card. 1 Drago. You can hard make this in the deck, but usually you're just going to go ahead and try to super poly for this as well. This is insane against the mirror match because you actually can just super poly their end board because the end board is always Beast plus Sword Knight, so then you can just go draw phase, immediately use this. This card is very good because in certain situations it can actually just let you go for lethal. It happened today where I used 4 materials for this and actually swung through 5 monsters. I just picked one and then put it to 0 with this card and just went for game. For this 3100 and being able to attack 4 times when it makes the monster 0 after the first hit is pretty crazy. The next card here is Magnum the Reliever. This card is actually so absurd. I did play against PK today, and I thought this was really relevant because my opponent had a Fogblade set, but they literally couldn't use it because the second they use it, you can chain this and pop the Fogblade. So that's also really funny. And then also you can go ahead and spin back a Branded Fusion, a Super Poly, or a Chimera Fusion to the bottom of your deck and then draw a card. So generically a very good card. I like this a lot. I thought that playing Magnum Control a few times was actually really cool. It came up quite often. I actually was borrowing a Guardian Chimera today. The other one was a Titanic Lad. I just didn't have my Chimeras yet, but this would be 2 Chimeras. The second one did come up. I just had to be very careful with my resources, just playing 1. But I heavily recommend that you play 2. I think that is really important. The branded package here, 1 of the Lubellion, playing 2 of the Albion here, and then 2 Mirror Jade. Just a small package for branded, but I still think it's all very necessary. Even the Lubellion, I think, is very good too, being able to get your Albazes back in your deck if you do want to use something like Branded Fusion again. But overall, I thought this was really solid. My extra deck came up almost all of them throughout the day, so definitely a very good extra deck overall. So I really went heavy on just being very generic in my side deck. So I started off with 3 Bell just because we play against Dragon, even Unchained when they use Chamber, or have the Water level 6 in their graveyard. That's really solid to have this for. Playing against Labyrinth. There's so many different situations where this card just becomes very relevant. Even having like 2 Magdema and 1 Druid's Worm, if I played against like a random tier deck, or if I played against just any generic matchup where this comes up, even against the Illusion matchup, sometimes it's very good. If they go and try to summon back their Sword Knight, you can go ahead and just Druid's or Magnema their Sword Knight, which is also very cool, just so you don't have to worry about that again. 2 Nibiru. Again, Nibiru is just really solid against things like Unchained. It's really good into even the plant deck if they start with like the line summoning healer where they go twin summon Lokai back and you just like Nibiru and they have to have more to follow up with. So that's really cool too. I am playing 2 Book of Moon and 2 Eclipse. I did want to have a way just to deal with anything that was going to be problematic, especially if I ran into something like Kashtira. I wanted to make sure that it just had some kind of answer for things like a Rise Heart. I know Kashtira isn't really that popular right now, but it's something that we still have to think about. And then 2 Lightning Storm and 1 Duster. I'm really not a fan of playing against back row decks and a lot of like Floodgates, so I just wanted to have the massive blowout because again, your whole deck is just 1 card starters. I want to just have the 1 card trade for a lot. When all of your cards start trading for multiple cards, I think that you're just always going to be in the lead. But I do hope that you enjoyed this. Let's hop right back into the slides. I really do hope that you all enjoyed the list. There was a lot of thought put into it. Honestly, it was so much fun to play. Definitely make sure that you run 2 Chimera, though. I really do think that that's an important number. I know a lot of people ask me if you could run 1. I do think that 2 is correct. But again, I really do hope that you enjoyed the video. If you haven't already checked out my Discord, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, or my Medify page, definitely go ahead and check it all out down in the description below. We are on our way to 20,000 subscribers, so if you're not already subscribed to the channel, definitely go ahead and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you.